went looking for trouble. And boy, I found her. She's in love with herself. She likes the dark. Grey Wolf Studios.
Debunking lipo myths is a topic that I had down to talk about. There's a handful of persistent lipo myths out there that continue to get circulated. Why, I'm not really sure, but they do. Well, in some cases, I kind of understand why they do. But anyway, let me go over just a few lipo myths with you that are either not true or not entirely accurate. The first one, let's take MAH rating and punch value. Some people believe that the higher the C rating is on the pack, the more punch or the more, the more power you'll get out of it. Well, that's not really accurate. Let's say you had a 120 C rated battery, that's capable of delivering, let's say it's a 5,000 milliamp 120 C pack. I don't even know what the amp draw would be on that thing. Let me just do some math real quick. 120 times 5, you could pull 600 amps out of a pack like that continuously. That is an awful large amount of power that you can pull out of that battery. However, just because you can pull 600 amps out of it doesn't mean that the battery is going to push 600 amps out of it. What I mean by that is the amp draw that's put on the battery is put on the battery by the motor. The ESC is just a conduit between the two. If your motor draw your lipo can be capable of outputting 600 amps, but if your motor only draws 45 amps, well, guess how much power is going to go through your ESC? 45 amps, not 600. Some people believe that if you put too high of a C rating battery into, plug it into an ESC, for example, the 120 C rated battery, if you plug that into an ESC that can't handle 600 amps, you'll smoke it. That's just not true. That is not true at all. Your motor pulls the amps out of the battery. Your battery does not push amps into the ESC. If that were true, there are no 1/8 scale or smaller ESCs that can handle 600 amps. The biggest one that I know of is the Tekin RX8, which can handle 210 amps continuous. So if that was true, all these 120 C rated batteries that Max Amps claims to be putting out, I don't even know if that's I don't know. They call it a true C rating. Whether it is or not, I've never looked into it. It seems to be way out there compared to what everybody else is putting out, but who knows? It could be a true rating. The point is, you're not going to smoke your ESC by having too high of a C rating. C rating, though, getting back to the original, okay, that was actually a different myth. Getting back to the original myth that I was talking about, C rating does not necessarily constitute how much punch your kit has, although it can, which is why I think this myth particularly likes to hang on out there. So basically, what happens is let's say, for instance, that you're using an RX8 speed controller. It can handle 210 amps continuous. And let's say you're using whatever motor, and let's say that the motor pulls 150 amps, just for the sake of argument. If you pull, okay, I'll take that back. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you're using a motor that pulls 175 amps. It makes it easier to work with. If it pulls 175 amps, and let's say we're working with this pack here, now this pack is rated for 176 amps continuous. It's only 1 amp higher than what your motor's actually pushing. Now your motor, whenever you hammer the throttle, is going to spike above the 176 or 175 continuous amps that it's pulling. Therefore, this particular battery is going to get really warm. In fact, it will probably run hot because you're going to be basically running right at its max capacity for amp draw, and you're going to be, pretty consistently spiking above it. So after a while, this pack is probably going to get really hot. Now, if this was a 40C pack, or let's back it up the other direction. If this was a 20C pack, it would only be, it would not be, I don't know what the math works out to. I should have done this math ahead of time, but 5,300, or well, let's say 5.3 times 20C is 106 amps. So, sorry, I suck at math. So if it was a 20C battery, it would only be capable of putting out 106 amps maximum continuous draw. If you ran a 20C battery in that same kit, it would definitely overheat and probably puff on you. And eventually, if you continued to run it, it would probably catch fire at some point because you would be way exceeding the maximum amp draw for that pack. Now that's an extreme example, but let's say you were using let's say it was a 25C pack. That makes it a little more realistic. A 25C pack can handle 132.5 amps. So let's say your motor's pulling 175. Well, a 25C battery is going to overheat and everything, but it would work for a while until you eventually damage it and it starts puffing and whatever, maybe eventually catches fire or whatever. But you could definitely use it a handful of times probably in that capacity, especially if you were kind of, being easy on it and you weren't, hammering the throttle a lot, stuff like that. Now, your kit's going to be starved for power because it's trying to pull more power than what the battery can really provide. So if you go and switch from a 25C pack to let's say a 40C pack, which can handle much more amperage continuous than what your motor's pulling, and can even cope with the spikes and everything. Well, not only is your battery going to run cooler and probably last longer, but you're actually going to see more punch out of it. So, so the myth is that the more C rating that you have, or the more MAH rating that you have, the more punch that the pack has. The only time that's true is if those numbers take you from running an underrated battery to an overrated battery, or a comparably rated battery. If you go from an underpowered situation to a battery that has enough power or more than enough power, then yes, you're going to see a difference in the punch that the kit has. But if you go from, let's say, a 30C pack, which is a comparably rated pack, it could probably handle 175 amp draw without too much problem, especially if it was on a track and you weren't bashing it real hard. You might see a little bit of difference moving up to a 40C battery, but you're probably not going to see a lot. You might notice a little bit, just because you're going from kind of on the edge to overrated. However, if you go from 40C, which is overrated, to 50C or 65C or whatever it is, which is way overrated, you're not going to see any difference in punch whatsoever, regardless of what the MAH value is or the C rating is. As long as you get the MAH, MAH and C rating both play a part in the maximum amp draw. So as long as you can get those two numbers up to a point where they, they're more than ample for the job that they're doing, upgrading to a higher C battery isn't going to do anything for you at all, other than cost you more money. So in reality, what I like that's why I usually stick with 40 to 50 C batteries, because the highest amp, um, ESC that I know of is 210 amps. While I generally almost always buy the 5,000 milliamp packs, the 5040C is typically my favorite go-to numbers, because I know a 5040C pack can put out 200 amps continuous. The ESC can only handle 210. So if I'm running my kit and I start noticing, if I'm not familiar with the kit already and know what its amp draw is and stuff like that, then I'll keep close tabs on the temps of everything, the motor, the ESC, and the battery. If the battery starts overheating at some point, then the C rating's too low for the amp draw that's being put on it. But anyway, so at any rate, the moral of the story here is, as long as your battery can handle the power consumption, adding more C isn't going to do anything for you. Adding more MAH is only going to increase your run times. Other than that, neither one of them are going to affect the punch value that you're going to get. The only time you're going to get that is when you go from underpowered to overpowered. Spent way too much time on that topic. Anyway, sorry, I felt like I was having a hard time explaining that one in a way that was easy to understand. Let's see what else we got here. We're getting toward the end of this thing. There's no need to ever balance your LiPos. Believe it or not, there are some people out there that actually believe that. More people than you'd probably think. Granted, they're not common, but it's actually kind of surprising how much. There's even some battery manufacturers that tell you that their cells are so good that they don't need balanced. It's bullshit. They do need balanced, and if they didn't need balanced, they wouldn't come with balance plugs and balance adapters on them. Even the company that claims theirs don't need to be balanced come with balance connectors. So just know that you got to balance your cells. I'd say the maximum you really would want to push it is maybe 10 charges in between balance charges, 10 regular charges in between balance charges. I personally balance charge mine, like I said earlier, balance charge mine every time. Some people like to push it to like every 5th time or every 10th time, but at some point, by the end of 10 charges, you need to balance charge the thing. That one should be common sense. LiPos will burst into flame and burn down your house in a matter of minutes. I already covered this actually when I was talking about lipo puffing. They will not go from normal healthy battery to erupting in flames in a matter of a couple of minutes. It usually takes quite a while. Even, I mean, if you go out there and watch some of the YouTube videos where people are deliberately overcharging the LiPos, it still takes them, probably 5 to 10 minutes to actually burst into flame. The only ones that have a tendency to burst into flame quickly is people that are actually like taking a board with a nail through the end of it and actually ramming it through several cells of a pack. I've only ever punctured a cell one time, and I only punctured the very top cell, and that was it. And the battery did not do anything. It didn't puff. It didn't do nothing. I even actually, against my better judgment, actually stuck it in a lipo bag and stuck it on the charger just to see what it would do, because that was the first time I'd ever really encountered that situation, and I was kind of curious, and I was prepared. I had the thing in a lipo bag, and I had an ammo can ready if it did start to do anything funky. And essentially what I can do in that case, if I have the ammo can handy and open, and if it started to burst into flame with a lipo bag. In fact, I'll go ahead and show you a lipo bag. This is a lipo bag right here. um, these are really cheap. You can get them from like hobbyparts.com or hobbyking.com. eBay straight from China is even actually, I think, a little bit cheaper, which is the way I got these. Although whenever you order stuff from China, it takes like 2 to 4 weeks to get it. But anyway, I have several of these. I have a couple of this size, and I have a couple that are like twice this size. Actually, that can hold a couple different lipos at once. This is actually the one that I normally use. It'll hold anything from a 2 cell up to a 6 cell. A 6 is a little snug, but these packs are designed to contain the fire if your lipo should happen to burst into flames. It's designed to contain the fire. So if I started to see that bag melt or whatever, I could pick up that bag, I could throw it in the ammo can, and I could run it outside where it can, you know, where it can burn out to its heart's content, and not cause any damage. But anyway, I even stuck it on the charger, played around with it for a few minutes, trying to charge it and discharge it. It didn't really work properly in terms of charging and discharging, but it never puffed. It never did anything. It didn't work right, but didn't do anything. No puffing, no fire, no smoke, nothing. No, nothing. So, um, but I think what happens, I think the only time that I've ever seen one burst into flame quickly is when multiple cells are punctured, which at that point, essentially the the two or more cells that are punctured, the gel that's inside of each one of the cells, it contacts with the other cell, and I think it causes a big short circuit inside the pack is what happens. um, so outside of puncturing multiple cells, I don't believe lipos can really go up in flames real fast. I think it does actually take quite a few minutes. I'd say at least 5, if not 10 or more minutes to get to a point from healthy battery to erupting into flame due to overcharging or due to um, you know too much amp draw. Running it too low on voltage will cause them to go bad. Things like that. Um, and then I already talked about storing the lipos with a full charge. Some people think it's fine to store them with a full charge and just keep them that way indefinitely. It's definitely not okay to do that. You can leave them for, a few days, maybe even several days, but at some point, if you don't use them within 3 to 5 days, I'd say discharge them. So anyway, enough about all that. This video's run on quite long enough. So I'll go ahead and end it with that, and I'm out. If you have any questions or comments for me, please, either leave me a message on the video. I don't check the comments on the videos all that often though. So if you really want to get a hold of me, the two best ways is to either visit my Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Graywolf Studios 74, or you could send me an email to graywolfstudios74@gmail.com. Either one of those ways is a good way to get a hold of me and give me feedback or ask me questions or whatever you'd like to do. Please share my videos if you found them useful or entertaining in any way. Please subscribe and share. That's why I make these videos, is to hopefully I'm providing a little bit of entertainment and or education to somebody that can use it. So support the cause by sharing and subscribing. My Facebook page is where I keep all my pics, and there's some conversation that goes on back and forth. I wish there was more actually conversation taking place on my Facebook page, um, and I'm trying to get that. I'm trying to get that happening. But if you want to see pics and have a conversation about RCs, visit my Facebook page and give it a thumbs up. So anyway, I'm out. Peace.